Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream / recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, December 5th. The new expansion came out. We opened well over 200 cards, and then I've made new decks using hsreplay.net, not Hearthstone. I kept calling it Hearthstone. And so yeah, I've got a new Druid deck that it was the best Druid deck that HS Replay said I could make for the amount of dust I had. It was kind of difficult to decide what to use the dust on because certainly I didn't have enough dust to make the best decks for every class. And I deleted all the other ones and we've just replaced them. Although Spell Hunter here is probably, for the most part, exactly the same as Spell Hunter was before, except for I think I did spend 1600 dust crafting this, which that'll certainly suck when this hero replacement card goes into wild. And that's really the cloud that everything hung over, was the idea that if I buy any cards whatsoever, even for the most recent expansion, it's just going to eventually be used for used in wild only, and so then that's not going to be that fun of an experience. This Murloc Paladin seems pretty different. I think we very well may have gotten this in opening cards. Yeah, I don't think I crafted any of the newer Rusticon Rumble cards. All of the Rusticon Rumble cards were good, but not particularly great. So they didn't introduce really new concepts that would have changed what the top meta decks were, or at least not in a way that I could even take advantage of it, even on my main account. My main account is further along, however. I do believe at this point, I think we just looked at this one, there's probably only 2 classic cards that I need to get. So next expansion, it will be a decision between buying potentially 75 cards or more for the next expansion, which probably won't drop many more cards than buying 50 card packs would. Or I could balance it out and try and get some of the cards that are of the older expansions and try and get some legendaries that way. I actually got quite a lot of legendaries in one of the accounts. So much so that I am fairly certain that the servers were glitched and it was just giving me legendaries like crazy on accident. See, yeah, all I have left is, if I can get 800 dust, I can craft 2 of these epic cards, and that's the only thing I'm missing from classic. Whereas if we look at like what we're missing from Rumble, I could certainly spend 100 to craft 1 copy of some of these cards that are rares, but there's still a ton of epics and legendaries in total that are just missing. And yeah, I seriously doubt, had I opened 25 more packs, this would have gotten down more than 2 pages. It may have been like 10 pages instead of 12 of missing things. If we look at all the standard cards that are missing, there's still quite a lot going on, and I have some of these gold cards that I could disenchant them and then use the dust to re-enchant them, but there's kind of no reason to do that, so I'll just leave it alone. I did disenchant quite a few gold cards that were extra. And then if we look at all the cards that are missing, there's quite a list here. Like, I don't think if I was just to type in the sub search common that I have, like, I guess I do. I guess I have all the common games in the game that exist, or I misspelled the word common. Let's see. I think it's COMMON. Yeah. So we have all of the common game cards, both standard and wild. But definitely we are missing a decent amount of rares. Each one of these costing 100 dust. So next expansion, maybe we could push forward and try to have a complete collection of rares. But it would probably take at least another year of saving up to get enough dust to get all the epics or legendaries. There's 10 pages of rares. If we limit that down to just standard cards, there's only 6 pages, which is definitely more doable, and they're hardly even full pages. So there is something to be said about just crafting something like this. But that being said, I'm using HS Replay. This is a slow setup, certainly, for this episode. 12 minions that cost 5 or more, or 6 elementals. Honestly, I think it would be easier to play 6 elementals, so I'm going to reroll this one. And mage cost cards line up nicely. I only have 35 gold. So they can't do anything here. And unless the solo adventure decided to add something new... Ooh, they did. The Rosterkans Rumble was not here when I launched the app yesterday during the expansion. So we are going to have some kind of single player experience in 2 weeks, which, if that's exactly 14 days and it started yesterday the 4th, then that's like the 28th. That's like the end of the year that this is going to happen, and I'm going to have to make some special videos. That kind of sucks. The release of this expansion has been, I think, very poorly timed. Brawlseum, the winner goes to spoil. The more you win, the more rewards. 12 wins means maximum glory. 13 losses. Okay. Brawlseum usually costs an entrance fee, but we're getting it for free, of course. Alright, so let's go back this way. Okay. That messed up the graphics, so that zoom out animation is not working as much. We're gonna take this, copy it, and we'll use Tempo Mage in the Brawlseum, and that'll work well for everything. We had some leftover news, so I should jump into the news pretty quickly. As for what's happening personally, I'm recording Borderlands. I barely have a week of footage. Like, I'm struggling to upload them, upload the videos, but also struggling to record the videos. I literally was 2 days. Like, I did not have Friday's video for Borderlands scheduled or uploaded until earlier today. So, like, this is dropping the ball, definitely. Like, it really probably would have made sense to do no content in November and not make any content for November. That would have given me a lot more time, but we're just gonna have to adjust with the new year.
Job's done.
So let's look at what we're trying to do. Are we playing Archmage Antoninus? I don't think we even are. I think what we're doing is trying to get spell damage up. Excuse me. and do spells.
Job's done.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all we're doing. The problem with going to hsreplay.net and getting these top meta decks that, or these better meta decks, is it only makes sense if it makes sense to you. If you have no freaking clue what you're supposed to be doing, then you're still very much left in the lurch about just, you know, not knowing what cards to play or what the strategy is. As far besides Borderlands, I'm not really recording anything else or doing anything else. There was yet another small bug fix update to the application, the macro application that I should have attacked first. But it didn't add any new key phrases or anything like that, so I'm not willing to go back and work on that. It's kind of weird that this DLC that I'm doing in Borderlands is getting content ID for the music in it, because none of the rest of Borderlands has been content ID'd. So I have no idea what's going on with that. Let's see. Let's go ahead and hit this. And I guess play this. And then in the turn. So yeah, I guess we can just start going through the news. Ideally, like this would be, I guess, a decent day to keep it short and sweet since I had to stream extra. The card pack opening video, to be honest, only got like 4 views. So, I mean, I don't know if there's really a reason to not do it, but that certainly seemed a little disappointing. I think a lot of that really does come from the release date, though, and just a lack of interest in Hearthstone right now. Yeah, that's what I thought was gonna happen. The end of the year Steam wishlist cleanup videos are still airing, but I doubt anybody's watching them. So not a lot of content is getting a lot of views right now, which is not super surprising for December. But that doesn't mean as a YouTuber that you can just stop making content. And that kind of sucks, certainly, but that's just kind of how it goes. It's the equivalent on TV. That's why there's just a bunch of movies that air on TV. I guess the idea could be made that for November and December there should be perhaps a different system that happens, where I would air like single individual longer content like movies on my channel, but I don't know how I could really do that. Just perhaps if I saved up, if I had so much content already pre-scheduled, I could save up a bunch of spotlights and it could just be Spotlight December. But I don't know if that would help anything. I don't know if anything will help anything on YouTube. So, alright. This.
We have many secrets.
This.
Oh. I don't have enough mana.
And that. I'm supposed to be paying attention here and actually trying to win. I kind of am doing that, but not much. So, let's start covering the news if we can get out on this. Like, I don't think the daily quests are going to be that big anyways. So I think we'll probably be done with the daily quest in 2 hours. I have 8 and then 5. And then, so if I do this, that, and that, oddly I think I might win the next turn if he can't do 10 damage. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is something. See, if this secret is the one that ends everything, which it probably is. We'll do that much, and then we'll do that much. Wow. Interesting. Interesting that I won. So now that deck has a 100% win ratio right now because it's won one time. Alright, moving on, we have an article from Gamatsu. Fire Emblem series has a portal website that has been relaunched. This is pretty much their Japanese website. It includes the series heroes, the series history, opening movies, and more. This is honestly an article I should not have even mentioned because it really is literally just, oh, somebody relaunched their website. Which we will be talking a little bit about what is effectively the relaunch of a launcher and the relaunch of a website in competition to Steam. I guess we could just talk about it now. Epic Games, owned by Tencent, remember, so, and until recently, Tencent seemed very much like it was owned by the Chinese government, and I'm not 100% sure that I'm ready to say that actually it isn't, or still isn't very highly influenced by the Chinese government, even though the Chinese government seems to not be caring too much, the Chinese government being a giant organization. I think we can just kind of end the turn and save the coin for later. So Epic Games, about a year ago, launched, no, it was probably 2 years ago, they launched their launcher, which came with a free copy of Shadow Complex, and that's how I got Shadow Complex for free. That's how I covered Shadow Complex. They actually contacted me, Epic Games did, after I started airing the footage of Shadow Complex and offered me a copy of the game, and I'm like, well, I'm already playing the game, so I don't really have a reason for a copy of the game. So that is, I guess, that. But that they are still very much the only company that has ever contacted me through Twitter and offered to sponsor me. Since that point, I've decided that that's probably a very bad idea, and I don't really want to go down the route of potentially having to disclose the fact that I'm getting free copies of games for review. But that's kind of a side story that doesn't have anything to do with this. Epic launched their launcher, which included their Epic Games, which was not really much of anything at the time. You're talking what you would be talking about is just
Job's done.
Shadow Complex, Unreal Tournament, and maybe a couple other things were slowly put on there, but you're not talking a lot of things. Epic later on, after that point, created Fortnite. Fortnite turned out to be a great success for them. I think Fortnite is totally playable on Steam and other services besides the Epic launcher. But it certainly changed the direction in which Epic was going. And so last stream, Monday, we talked about how Steam reduced its revenue share, so it was taking less money for games that sold really, really well on Steam. Well, Epic has announced that they're going to make their own storefront, and they're going to take what seems like considerably less money than even the new deal for the best top AAA games are gonna get on Valve service Steam. Not that that particularly matters too much, because this all kind of boils down to it kind of just boils down to how much foot traffic Epic's store is going to get. And with Tencent owning Epic, the question is, for the curated content, because they are going to curate it, you're going to have to be approved to put your games on there, unlike Steam Direct. How much of that content is going to be more focused around the Chinese market, if there is a Chinese market still, when this launches in a year? Or how much of this is going to be more like a good old games storefront that very much picks and chooses what they want and isn't very focused on being more of an open style of release.
Job's done.
So it could be that the Epic storefront, if it does launch, if it does turn out to be successful, would be really small. They are incentivizing their storefront by not charging the 5% license fee royalty for using the Unreal Engine. So if you make an Unreal Engine game now, it's 5% cheaper to put that game on the Epic storefront than it is to play it, to put it on Steam, which I think at that point you have a legal argument for unfair business practices and monopolistic tendencies, because you're certainly giving quite an advantage to your own storefront. And yes, a lot of small indie people and people in general are echoing this idea of Epic starting a new storefront as a good thing. Competition, in my mind, isn't always an inherently good thing. Like, that is something that is preached by capitalists and corporate cronies in the United States all the time, but it's not really that big of an issue, frankly, not nowadays, because of all the shenanigans that happens in corporate politics. So if you look at something like cell phone companies in the United States, there's Verizon, there's AT&T, there's T-Mobile, there's Sprint. There's 4 companies. They would argue certainly that is a lot of competition, but it really hasn't done anything to maintain a low price or reduce the price of cell phone service, which is kind of continuously going up and up and up. And Steam, in small parts, has had competition. Good Old Games is competition. EA Origin is competition. Uplay is competition. The Xbox Marketplace and the Windows stores is competition. The PlayStation store is competition. The Nintendo store is competition. There's tons of competition. I don't think this one new storefront is really changing the way the market really is going to be. Meanwhile, there is potential here for just more dissolution, where less games are on Steam, and for most people, if you've got even $100 of games on Steam, the idea of switching over to another service gets kind of hard. It gets hard. You're gonna have to split your attention. You're going to have to remember where your Call of Duty install is on, or where your Unreal Tournament install is on. Actually, you don't have to remember where your Unreal Tournament install is on, because they sneakily announced, Epic did, that they're no longer developing Unreal Tournament. So this entire announcement is really just very smart publicity. They've figured out how to hide the fact that the game that they were putting a lot of effort into and a lot of development money in it and resources into has basically been a total and complete failure, and instead of continuing to focus on that, they've decided to opt to go a different direction and just stop developing it. It's a little bit of sleight of hand on Epic's part. Now all of this kind of revolves around Grey Alien Games and a few other people, but it's mostly Grey Alien Games complaining about a bug on Steam that Steam says has been fixed. Let's see, if I did this, I couldn't do this, but I can potentially do this. Actually, I probably should have played the coin, but I don't have the money. Right. Well, this is good, because if this is explosion attack, then I'm fine. But if it's freezing attack, I'm not fine. Darn it. But the way I've seen this so far is a bunch of small indie developers on Steam are complaining that starting in December their games were not getting discovered, that people were not being shown their games on Steam at random when random people went to a storefront. Which, let's say that is 100% true. Let's just immediately make that assumption. That really, in part, just boils down to, hey, Grey Alien Games and all you small independent people, you know what you didn't do in the month of December? You really didn't put your games on sale. You really didn't put any extra advertisements on your games, and you probably were smart to do that because, you know, in that same time frame, Call of Duty was coming out and several other games were coming out, so this really wasn't the right month for people to be interested in playing your small indie game. There seems to be this continuing misconception, and Epic's not really going to do anything for you either. None of these storefronts are going to promote your game and basically spend advertising resources for your game if your game is a small indie game that's not bringing people to the storefront in the first place. It's the equivalent of a toilet paper manufacturer being upset that Walmart is not putting the toilet paper right at the front of the store or outside the store to get people to see it. It's like people don't go to Walmart just to buy toilet paper usually. There's more to it. There's some other better, more recognizable or more necessary thing that you would get. Toilet paper is probably a bad example for this argument. because toilet paper very well may be one of the items that brings people into a store. Same is true for like milk and eggs. Like I follow Gray Alien Games Twitter, and he's been tweeting like crazy. But he was not promoting his own game much at all during that same time frame. You could have day 2 of getting reports. As soon as you got a report that discoverability was down, you could have easily said, hey, my game is out here, my game is on sale. I imagine there is very possibly a case here where people, had they even seen his game, which I'll admit probably there was a bug and it probably didn't show up in Steam Discovery, I imagine people wouldn't have bought his game anyways. And I don't think moving over to Epic, if all the indie developers, the real indie developers, decide to move to Steam, it's not really going to change much. There is this constant argument that Steam is flooded with bad games. It is flooded with bad games, but it doesn't generally matter because of the way the discoverability and the suggestion engine works. And it's not really Steam's job to promote other people's games. Even if Steam is getting a 30% cut from the sales, that 30% cut needs to very much be looked at the fact that they're hosting your files, they're hosting patches, they're hosting a forum for you, they're dealing with your customer service, they're dealing with all the transactional fees and such of credit cards. You're getting quite a lot for that 30%. It could be lower, certainly. Steam could go lower, but Steam is still going to be the best game in town as far as storefronts. Like, Epic lowering its price and being the cheap storefront that's full of indie games is not a consumer friendly offering so much. Like, if Epic's storefront was full of tons and tons of indie games, it just becomes like itch.io. That's all that happens. Anyways, that's a bit of a long rant, and we'll get into it probably a little bit more as I have actual articles to talk about there. So let's move forward. Like,
you asked for it.
I wish I could say I was cautiously optimistic about Epic starting a storefront, but I'm really not. The idea sounds unappealing to me. The idea that some more games may leave Steam does not sound interesting to me. This is from somebody who has 900 plus games on Steam, so I am committed 100%. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are committed to playing on Xbox, and they would never move to a PlayStation. And there's plenty of people that are committed to playing PlayStation games, and they'd never move to an Xbox system in the same similar ways. Although backwards compatibility for like the PS3 to the PS4 was non-existent, so it was really easy for people who maybe were on the PS3 to skip over to the Xbox. Alright. I just want to basically play this here.
Job's done.
Let's see. We have a game on Steam called Gods Remastered. This seems like it's a real game. It feels like it's a modern take on like an NES Shinobi style game. Platformer. Maybe there was a game that came out called Gods, and I just don't recognize it. So I'll put this on the follow list, and we'll see what the reviews have to say. They killed that guy. Darn it. Well, Do we have a secret?
Job's done.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Angry Dark. This doesn't look quite as appealing just because the camera zoomed out and it's more pixely. Real great example there. Gods Remastered looked pretty good because the camera was zoomed in as a platformer. This looks pixely, perhaps a little repetitive because I see only one enemy type. It seems like you're jumping and shooting guns, which Mario Brothers and jumping on enemies' heads worked really nicely with a platforming idea. Once you start shooting guns, it's kind of the combination of two divergent concepts. Apparently it's from Atos and Illumina Corp. This sounds not good enough to make it to the wish list though. Each player draws a card. Let's see, can I pump up a minion?
What to do? What to do?
Can I do this and this? No. Hit that, and we'll play
Time runs out on me.
this. There we go. It's not playing. Anyways, next we have a game, Dabman Dabtastic Bundle, which is a bundle of several, or at least two of these troll joke games that they really haven't been flooding Steam with these, and they're full motion videos, so they're spending probably more effort making these games than it's worth. It's probably a bunch of friends that think they're having a good laugh doing all of this, but it's definitely not for me. I don't know if there's much of a market out there. Just a lot of games. A lot of troll games. Yep. But again, I guess this troll developer doesn't cross the line, so
Time runs out on me.
so there's no reason to kick them off Steam, at least in Valve's opinion. Inherently, I guess that could be an outcome of more competition, is that Valve would become more of a closed, curated experience, which honestly I think that would backfire pretty badly, because if it becomes the case that all game platforms start curating their experiences so much that it's not even possible to, if it became impossible to even find some games to play them, that would be kind of crazy. If it just becomes this huge like pro censorship style of movement or attack, that would kind of suck. Like there is a big fear here that Valve, I mean, so many corporations, Valve, Steam, or anybody else can take whatever message they want. We have the example of Tumblr banning all adult content and deleting all those Tumblr pages, which, you know, Tumblr has been a dead thing, but it's an also automated thing, so I don't have a real reason to shut down my Tumblr since it's 100% automated and I don't look at it. But it certainly is pretty obvious that not a lot of people use it. But I would hope there might be one or two people out there that still get their they go to Tumblr as the first web page that they open every day when they wake up in the morning. And if that's the case, then I'm willing to oblige there. Same is true for Google Plus. So once Tumblr or Google Plus actually shut down, then you can no longer access them, which wouldn't be surprising if that happened pretty quickly. Then I'll remove those links, and once they're shut down, the links won't go to anything. So we got a card pack of the new cards. I'm fairly certain 4 of those cards were going to be... Nope, all... Wait a minute. I opened the pack with 5 cards. I have 5 cards to dust. They say they're all common cards. So what is the card that is extra? Like, I have this I just got. This I just got. This is a classic card. How did I end up with an extra classic card? This stuff is glitched. There's no way I should have had an extra classic card. No reason whatsoever. And then the new card is here. Alright, so where does that put us on the daily quest? We need to play elementals. So let's look at our collection. It didn't seem like Temple Mage had that many elementals. Maybe Spell Hunter has some elementals. No. Maybe the Druid has some elementals. Not really. Are we gonna immediately have to make an elemental deck? This is called Murloc Paladin, and it literally has no Murlocs in it. That's a terrible name. I didn't make up these names, by the way. That 2 is part of this. There's 1 elemental there. And then a bunch of dragons. Token Shaman, maybe? Yeah, I guess Token Shaman is the best I've got. So we'll play that. Token Shaman, might as well play ranked. Let's go. Yeah, I could be... we've had this consistent concern with Valve that they were going to turn and start censoring their storefronts. They said they were going to, then they said they weren't going to, then they seemed like they weren't, but now they seem like they might be. So it's very, very awkward, and it's inconsistent. So if Valve did a purge of all like anime visual novels and or adult games or lewd games, then that would be something that potentially would have me move over to something like Epic, but I doubt Epic is going to be the solution there either. It'll be interesting to see what games get allowed and what games don't, because as soon as there is one story, one message of a game not being allowed on the storefront, that's when the news is going to start happening. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Persona 3 Dancing in the Moonlight and Persona 5 Dancing in the Starlight Western DLC has been scheduled. I didn't even know those games had come to the West. Yeah, those are dancing spin-offs of the Persona series. I think they're all like PS4 or PS Vita games. So I don't think there's a PC version of those games, which that may change pretty quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if pretty much all the AAA developers from Japan start releasing on PC or releasing on the Nintendo Switch, or both. TechRaptor has an article, Bethesda to compensate Fallout 76 Power Armor Edition owners with a replacement canvas bag. So, Bethesda realized that they were in real trouble here, and the way you have to jump through hoops and fill out a form, so I imagine several people will not do that, and that will save them some money because of that also. Why you have to fill out a form is kind of ridiculous. They should be able to get that information from retailers. Even if they had to do something as silly as saying, we'll send out a certain number of replacements to each retailer who bought these. Like, I heard on that people didn't even bother to pick up a lot of the Power Armor editions they pre-ordered, so that there's extras sitting around anyways. What will be interesting when those canvas bags arrive is if they look like what was offered again, or if they were slightly different yet again. I wouldn't be surprised if there's yet again slightly different, and maybe to a satisfactory level, maybe not. What this feels like to me, and I said it last stream, it feels like Bethesda probably got screwed by a manufacturer of canvas bags that they were subcontracting through, and they probably had to stop doing business with that manufacturer, source a new manufacturer, and try to get replacements made. And their responses in the middle of all of that were not particularly good. Let's see, this is this an elemental? Yes. And what do we want to do here? Let's see. Hit that. Hit that. And attack there. So, yeah, for the canvas bags, I don't really blame Bethesda, but for the terrible Bethesda Fallout 76, you definitely should blame Bethesda. For Fallout 4 not being that good, you should blame Bethesda. Even for the initial way in which Fallout 3 ended, you should blame Bethesda. Like, Bethesda really hasn't been doing anything good for the as far as what could have been done for the consumer. Let's see. Let's go ahead and hit that. And go ahead and hit that. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Japanese trademarks, Humankind from Sega, and the gear for a grown-up hero from Sega. Plus, Kadakawa Games trademarks Starly Girl's Chinese title. These names don't sound familiar to me at all. So, sounds like some new IP, maybe Japanese only IP, is in development. Let's see, was that enough? What do I want to do here? Do that. Do that.
My magic will
And
tear
return
you apart.
Squelch. Moving on.
Science overwhelmed.
TechRaptor has an article. Assassin's Creed Symphony has been announced. Now, I don't think it is an actual video game. I think it actually is a symphony that will just be playing music from the Assassin's Creed series. Yeah. Which, while the music isn't terrible from Assassin's Creed, it's not inherently like so recognizable and so interesting that I would want to go listen to it for a couple of hours. Let's see, we're already done with the American account. Let's move over to the European account. There have been some orchestras that have done special events where they've played music, and typically it's like we'll play Super Mario Bros. 1 level 1-1 music, or Super Mario Bros. 3 level 1-1 music, or we'll play Zelda Ocarina of Time, or several other pieces, and you'll mix in some lesser known pieces with some better known pieces. But the idea of just playing the songs from Assassin's Creed seems pretty limited. Well, apparently I'm gonna have to defeat the Monster Hunter bosses. Let's start with this. Alright. So, we need to decide which deck here I want to play. And I started with Druid, so theoretically the Token Druid should be the best deck I have. Because HSReplay.net, I gave it the totality of my dust and said, what's the best one I could reasonably do? And I didn't want to spend more than 2,000 dust on any one deck, so theoretically this should be the best one. But I could be wrong about that, certainly. Let's see. Was that builds? We'll move on. Game of Citra has an article. Ubisoft acquires game server provider i3D.net. Ubisoft acquiring more people is probably not super scary. It's a little bit scary. Like, ideally you don't want to see Ubisoft get bigger. You want to see Ubisoft focus in on quality and content products on what they're making. In the same way THQ Nordic has disappointed me by just continuously acquiring more and more companies in between the announcement of Darksiders 3 and now after the release of Darksiders 3. Ubisoft would also disappoint me if they're just acquiring and acquiring and acquiring, and they're making more games and they're making more games. Ubisoft had already disappointed me very much by not really consistently sticking to what they said they were going to do with the Assassin's Creed series, because Assassin's Creed Origins was supposed to be the new reboot, relaunch of that style of game, and that it wasn't going to be an annual release style of game that they just, where they're just going to churn out something every year. And then Odyssey came out about a year later, so they didn't stick to their word on that. And it certainly made it hard to justify or think about wanting to play Odyssey for a lot of people when there was still plenty of Origin to play. Right, so I'm gonna play this. We have a game on Steam over here called the Unfolding Engine Paint a Game, which seems like it's a tile placement style of game. Basically, this might just be an Unreal Engine skin, or a Unity Engine skin. It looks kind of impressive as you're seeing what can only be assumed as a professional making a gameplay environment, but this does not look like a fun game at all, really. It's free, so I guess if you wanted to play with it, but it's also kind of dumb. Even if you were trying to learn how to be a game developer, this is not the engine game developers use. This is not how you paint things and texture things. The things you're seeing being placed here, you would have to create in something like Blender, so there are 3D wireframes with skins and textures and lighting models on top of them, and then you'd have to import those 3D models into something like Unreal or Unity. This is basically teaching you nothing. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and attack and see what happens there. So yeah, that game just seems like a game that doesn't really need to exist. Next we have a game on Steam called Thirst for Life, which seems like it's a zoomed out pixel graphics hack and slash game. I kind of need to see this game in action, but it does seem like you're pretty much just going to hack and slash against like werewolves or zombies or something. They're flashing around like crazy to hide what this game really is. Yeah, it's basically a twin stick shooter on a 2D scale with some roguelike elements. No, this doesn't quite look quality enough that I would consider playing it. It's discounted $2.39 right now. Let's see. And this.
The light protects me.
And this.
Time waits for no one.
Hopefully this is not an explosive trap.
Job's done.
Of course it is. Yeah, I played that poorly. I could have definitely played better there. Let's see.
We will devour this world. I fight.
Keep on playing.
Job's done.
Clearly the strategy in the token druid is to keep this guy up and powered. Takeruptor has an article. Black Desert Online receives a battle royale mode in an archer class. So yet another game is getting battle royale. Black Desert Online being kind of this more Chinese focused online MMO that I think some people are into it, but I think some people are not super into it. It certainly hasn't managed to come to the West and catch anyone's attention. That much I can say for certain. Man, if I'd given him that death rattle a long time ago, that might have helped.
Speak your peace.
Let's see.
I fight.
For the wild.
Gamma Sutra has an article. NVIDIA's physics engine is now open source. So, NVIDIA announced earlier today its physics simulation engine, Physics, spelled PHYX 4.0, is now open source and under the BSD3 license, which is slightly different than like the Apache license. Typically, I think the BSD license is looked at as being a little bit easier and compatible for businesses to use, where the Apache license or the the Common Core license is the other one. It's been a long time since I've read about licenses. Those tend to not be Creative Commons license. That's what it's called. Let's see. So the thing here is that this makes it easier for game developers to program towards that code. It makes it easier if AMD or Intel integrated graphics wanted to try and use that style of that physics engine. They could theoretically do that now, and makes it closer to something like a standard across NVIDIA, AMD, ATI, and Intel. The physics SDK has already been integrated into things like Unreal Engine, both version 3 and 4, and Unity 3D. The question I would have here is the physics engine the same thing that ray tracing is using? Theoretically, it should be. Ray tracing RTX technology should be in the physics engine, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's something completely different, and NVIDIA decided to come out with a whole different different name for a whole different engine. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they don't, because we've been seeing some more of this happen. DirectX DirectX is also from Microsoft, and it's trying to be a little bit more open source and friendly, so more people use it. And it's highly unlikely that somebody these days would legitimately try to make their own physics engine, because that would be a waste of time and money. That being said, like, how much does a game engine like the Frostbite engine use of the NVIDIA graphics engine, like physics? Maybe it uses a lot of it, maybe it uses none of it.
The light protects me.
So there is definitely some questions, and probably some software out there that doesn't use it that much. And meanwhile, Microsoft is slightly competing with NVIDIA, because they're trying to get graphics to be pre-rendered via cloud processing. And I suppose eventually we'll have to figure out if that succeeds or not. Let's see. Gamma Citra has an article, get a job, join the Signition team as a game programmer. This job is in Palo Alto, California. I'm not sure what Signition has worked on. That's my main question here. Is, let's see, let's go to the website and see what they've made. Let's see, this
Mushroom power!
and guess we'll get this and that
I fight.
and keep on playing. I think we'll probably mill him when he draws a card. Nope, he still had enough room. Okay, Signition is apparently trying to make some kind of educational game called Fogstone Isle. It's like a math thing. It looks like a terrible asset flip, frankly, and yeah, it does not look good at all. Yeah, that does just look like some straight up garbage. Okay, 3, 3, 2, 2. If we do that, and then if we do that, we can do that. I still didn't have enough room for that. I should have played this instead.
I fight.
For the wild. Time waits for no one.
GameIndustry.biz has an article. Niantic invests in holographic AR display outfit. Pokemon Go creator among the latest backers in DigiLens Series C funding round. We'll see if that goes anywhere. You could certainly get a reason and an understanding on why Niantic would like to see AR work. It would definitely improve the idea of Pokemon Go being played.
Job's done.
But also this could be just very simplistic investments to be in on something just in case it succeeds wildly, which is a lot of what investment is. Of course, right now the stock markets are doing pretty poorly, last I heard, in the United States because of fears of a growing trade war with China.
Speak your peace.
Job's done.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Override Mech City Brawl. This might be the first mech game that actually is good on Steam that I've found. So yeah, $29.99 is pretty expensive, but I like that this looks very fast paced. This looks like a fun game. It's rated positively already. It's from kind of an unknown developer, Modus Games. What else do they make? Extinction and Ninja. Extinction being mixed, and this being positive. Isn't Ninja the one where you're running as a rabbit ninja? I think it is. Well, this looks good though, so definitely put that at the follow list. Go. So we've got this,
Time waits for no one.
this,
For the wild. Job's done.
in the turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Killer Clowns that looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter with just clowns on it. Seems like it's probably a joke reference from Killer Clowns of Outer Space. The idea, I mean, even trying to make a game sort of based on that is pretty dumb. But it's a top-down twin-stick shooter as far as I can see. It's not visually appealing. It's really dark, and if it weren't for the different colors between this screenshot and this screenshot, it looks exactly the same. That's really expensive for what it looks like too, so yeah, that's not making it to the list. Managed to heal himself with Healing Rain, I imagine. Now this is interesting because I would have thought Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden was coming out like late in 2019, but somehow it just kind of came out with no fanfare. Mutant Year Zero is the game where it's a humanoid pig and a humanoid duck and a humanoid, looks like an elf character in some kind of weird post-apocalypse. Just keep on playing, I guess. But it's out, and TechRaptor has a review of it, so let's scroll down here and see what they have to say about it. I'm seeing some screenshots. It looks like it's third-person perspective or first-person perspective shooter. They give it a 7.0, very good. The summary is Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is a competent, albeit narratively underwhelming underwhelming tactical RPG with novel stealth mechanics and solid turn-based mechanics. So it kind of feels like it's maybe a little bit more like XCOM. I was wondering if that might have been the case. The pros are it has an original stealth mechanic, fun turn-based combat, compelling atmosphere, and a rewarding level design. The cons are is it has overused narrative tropes, some exploitable mechanics, and it doesn't explore the setting enough. So it almost feels like Mutant Year Zero is an experiment on the new IP, and honestly, looking at the main characters, that's probably all you could have ever gotten was an experiment on a game like this. It feels very much like almost a Borderlands thing where Borderlands 1 looked like a generic first-person shooter originally, and then they, at the last second, just put a different skin on it. I could easily see that the main characters in this game could have been generic first-person shooter military people that they decided at the last second to turn into pigs and ducks and elves or snake or whatever it is that the other character is supposed to be. And it's apparently based on a tabletop RPG, so some people already had some familiarity with this series, and they're saying it's an homage to Stalker. So maybe you're better off playing Stalker first. Doesn't look terrible. This is the kind of game though that I would definitely want to see somebody play before I make a final decision. It is on Steam, so I guess we could see. Let's trade some of these out first, and then let's hold on to that card. We could come over here and just show it off. It's rated very positively at this point. Yeah, it seems like it's slightly an XCOM thing until you go into targeting mode. Let's see. This might be a better introductory game to something like XCOM than XCOM is, because you know there might be some issues with just too much strategy in XCOM, or too much randomness in XCOM.
Time waits for no one.
Should I play a card now, or just end my turn? So I'll double check to make sure Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is on my fall list. The council, by the way, came out finally. The entirety of it, the fifth chapter came out, and apparently it's free, it seems, and it's on sale on Steam, or it was yesterday when I looked at it. So I promoted that from being a game that was on the fall list to being a game on the wish list, because I just, you know, don't want to buy games that aren't finished. And the council did feel like a game that could possibly have been one of those games that didn't actually finish. And I'm still not 100% certain that it doesn't end in the form of ending the first season but leaving it open for a second season. What are we trying to do? So yeah, there's that. Gamatsu. No, the reason I mentioned that is because I wanted to specifically mention when I move things from the fall list to the wish list. I really can't wait, even if I did a monthly Steam fall list cleanup video that was only a couple hours. Even if I did that, like, I really can't wait if I see a game that's closer to a single A game, or just if I see a game in general that's good and it's on my fall list and I want it on the wish list, it should just go on the wish list immediately. so some of the management will be done off screen, but some of it I'll take special time away to look through everything and make videos on that. That way I can make more content in my dwindling amount of content I'm creating these days. Gamatsu has an article. GKO Powerful Pro Baseball 2018 will be updated with 2019 player data. So GKO is more of a like 3D bobblehead style animation of baseball player characters.
Speak your peace.
What do I want to do now? I think this is probably the best thing to do. Like, at this rate, I'm not going to get a single win on any of the Brawlseums, but I'm kind of fine with that. It's kind of nice that a baseball game would just update and last more than a year. That is pretty out of the way. Different for video game creators that makes sports games, instead of just screwing people over and making them buy the exact same game with slightly different stats. TechRaptor has a Just Cause 4 review, Summer Blockbuster, the video game, it says, is the title. Let's scroll down and see what they think. I didn't really know Just Cause 4 was coming out. Let's see. Interesting, they're mentioning that they were running it on a GTX 970 and that they were having small problems getting it to stick to 60 frames at 1080p. But the way they're phrasing it is the opposite of the way I just said it. They're saying they were happy that they could get it to 1080p and 60 frames per second on what is now a slightly old video card. The exact quote is, "There were occasional frame dips when things got extra explosive, but I was also playing with a build before any game-specific drivers came out." So I have noticed NVIDIA logged me out of the GeForce Experience app, and I logged back in, and even when I logged back in, they still didn't really have anything new as far as a video card driver. So I imagine we will probably get an update on video card drivers maybe next Tuesday. Let's see. Just gonna go ahead and hit this to play this.
For the wild.
Yep. Let's see. Just Cause is mostly just an open sandbox game, so like I think I would probably want to play Far Cry a lot more, at least some of the Far Cry games, at least one of the Far Cry games before I specifically went to playing a Just Cause game. And if I was going to play a Just Cause game, I think it's fairly obvious you would want to play the very first one. Well, I managed to get one victory there. TechRaptor gave Just Cause 4 an 8.5 great score. Summary says, Just Cause 4 is the most essential game of the series, perfecting years of blowing things up in the most creative ways. While the narrative doesn't have any lasting impact, the overall package delivers as video game comfort food. The pros are its delightful tether options, a fantastic addictive locomotion, an exciting gun variety, and action movie heroics. The cons are skin deep story and uninspired characters. The thing about Just Cause, I would say too, is it's filling in a slight gap in what you would call the open sandbox series, things like Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed is in the past, Watch Dogs is in this super kind of futuristic world, and honestly I don't think Watch Dogs has you climbing around, jumping and swinging. Spider-Man, I mean, might be a little bit of a open world game, but it's a superhero game too, so it doesn't quite work either.
Speak your peace.
I'm waiting for no one.
So when you're talking modern time frame or somewhat modern time frame style of Assassin's Creed games, there really isn't any, and I guess there might be some other ways you could look at games like this. I think Far Cry probably doesn't have you jumping around and tethering and swinging as much either. So while it may be a very narrow description and narrow niche, it really isn't running into a lot of direct competition. It's just slightly somewhat similar competition. So yeah, dumb, stupid fun. If I wasn't playing Borderlands 2 and then planning on playing Borderlands the pre-sequel, I could see myself moving into play Just Cause 4. But, you know, I might get down to the point where I play something like Just Cause 5, because that might be the next game in the series. Right. 2 damage to the enemy hero. Let's see. I screwed up. I should have attacked with that and then that. That was a mistake. GameIndustry.biz has the same article. Bethesda promising replacement bags after the Fallout 76 Power Armor Edition. Bethesda also, on Reddit at least, is pretending like it's going to try and promote open communication and directly respond to all the criticisms on Reddit for Fallout 76. So theoretically, maybe in 6 months Fallout 76 might be a good game. I doubt it. I think the premise itself is pretty flawed. I think from the first idea the concept failed. So yeah, I don't know how you can fix it now. It's probably just abandon it and move on to the next game. We have a game on Steam called Roguelite with an anime girl that looks like an RPG Maker game. Like, what's funny is it's tagged as RPG, but not tagged as a roguelite, even though that's what it's really describing itself as. It's literally named itself as. And while I loved Rogue Legacy for being a roguelite, this just looks bad. Like, it really is just an RPG Maker game. That's all it really is. Maybe the second generation of the RPG Maker software, I'll give it that. 2 damage to all other characters. So when this guy ends, he's gonna kill all of these. Next we have a game on Steam called Mutate that looks like it's customize your character. That much I've got. Is it a life simulation after that? Is it something kind of like a very cheap Spore clone? Not that Spore was particularly interesting. Yeah, this really looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter. Either that or you're not controlling the character at all and you're just... well, that would be even more irritating, yeah. And for a top-down twin-stick shooter, you're zoomed in too much, and that's That's usually not a complaint I make, but yeah, there's not enough screen real estate here. 59 cents right now, it's discounted too. I got a discount code for some game, but I can't even tell you the name of it. It was like, I think it was Dog Eat Ball or Pig Eat Ball or something. And I was like, I don't know what this game is. I've seen it, but I didn't decide that it was worth playing. GameIndustry.biz has an article. The Pokemon Go trespassing lawsuit has been settled. No terms disclosed, but both parties targeting approval next Friday. So this was a settlement with various U.S. homeowners who sought to sue the mobile game developers over the impact Pokemon Go had on their property. So, from what I understand, like, people are knocking on people's houses and asking to go in their backyards to catch Pokemon Go. And it's like, yeah, no, that. I do believe Pokemon Go does have a statement directly when you launch it about never going on private property or trespassing, and I think that's been there for a long time, if not since the original launch. But Niantic's idea of just randomly picking positions on a map and saying there are virtual animals there to collect was a bad idea. It needed some lawyers to talk them down from that idea. It's a bad idea in two ways, because frankly you could have partnered with every mall and storefront that exists and said, hey, let's get more people going to your McDonald's, let's get more people going to your Walmart. People would probably be somewhat happy about that until they realized that the people that were going to the storefront were not actually buying anything and they were just playing Pokemon Go. So, one new card again. Let's see if we can find it without typing in the key phrase. New. Hey. Yep. A new epic card. Another pack. So you get at least a pack for doing the Tavern Brawl, even if you lose. So it's a good time here to break up the recording, and we still have a decent amount of news, and we still need to defeat 3 Monster Hunter bosses. It's kind of ridiculous with this new expansion that we're going to have to do this, but whatever. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.